The frontrunner is directed by Jason Reitman and stars Hugh Jackman and Vera Farmiga and J.K. Simmons, and is about the fall of presidential candidate Gary Hart, whose 88 election campaign was torn to pieces by the tabloids after it is discovered he is having an affair with Donna Rice. This film has already had its run in the United States, but it has only just come round to its international circuit, and I was lucky enough to catch an advanced screening. Now, without further ado, let's start with the positives, which, above all else, is the conversation that the film tries to get going. Effectively, this was the first campaign where gossip and scandals took centre stage, and at the end of it all, Gary Hart doesn't even lose the election. He simply drops out due to the vicious nature of reporters swamping his family, and the question is constantly asked over whether what he does is relevant at all to the ability to be president. From what we see in regards to his professionalism, he is very good at dissecting the falseness of general politics and seems to have a genuine want to improve the country and a genuine care for the people of the country. It is very easy to see why he was the runaway leader in the campaign, as the way he uses words to point out the absurdity in people's methods is brilliant. It is a tale of moving with the times and the refusal to do so, and seeing this person be so confident and charismatic professionally, but reserved and stubborn when it comes to his personal life, is an enjoyable dynamic to watch. The cinematography as well is cleverly used. I particularly love the opening shot, but a load of the camera work appears to be handheld whenever it's covering stuff happening behind the scenes, such as campaign meetings, dealings at home, and journalism discussion. And the symmetry with the stylistic cinematography, whenever there is a public appearance, is gold. However, as much as I enjoy the opening shot, the contents of what's going on in that shot is just a lot of white noise. The sequence takes place as a precursor before cutting to 4 years later, and in that 5-minute segment we just get the main players, yet learn nothing about them. So it is a wasted sequence. Plus the film plays it too safe. It feels like it's trying to have a stern talking to with the tabloid media, but it never goes all in with it, and certain story elements could have been more fleshed out. The affair angle is never properly established and is built on assumptions. We don't get a full-scale scene of the conversation between Hart and Rice the first time they meet. We don't see any hint that they sleep together until later on, so I ended up questioning if this affair actually happened, and it was just an early example of photography being taken out of context. That's what I thought the film was going for, but the girl talk scene all but confirms that it did happen. So if that's the case, why not flesh out Donna's character properly before it all goes to hell? Because the film just depicts her as another woman wanting to bet a rich guy, yet gives her some dialogue, playing her as smarter than that. Show don't tell with something that could have been utilised way better here, because the film refuses to pick a side over who is the victim here. Even when it tries to attack tabloid journalism, they have one character who is really inconsistent with their motivations, and one of his colleagues is just there to be outraged woman number one. The film even has a scene of Mrs. Hart crying because something had happened to their daughter due to the tabloids, but that is never addressed or emphasised on, we just have to assume it. And Donna Rice is effectively an afterthought in this whole thing. She's hardly in it at all. The film tries to make so many little points, never committing to one. There is just a lack of fleshed out characters in this. Even Gary himself at times just seems to be a shell floating from scene to scene. A big part of this story is supposed to be his relationship with his wife, but they are hardly on screen together until after the episode happens. It really is an interesting watch because it throws in all the sides and never leans one way or the other, and ends up just being a standard story which really should have been a deep commentary over the state of what the news is these days. It does not help that in the past few years we have had Spotlight and The Post both telling more grounded and ambitious approaches to journalism and what that means. Performance-wise, Hugh Jackman is great whenever he is being stubborn and defiant, or charming and charismatic on his election trail. He brings a lot of good to this character, who writing-wise lacks sympathetic depth. When he is outraged, calling tabloids out on why it's their business, in an age where that was never a news thing, it gives food for thought. Vera Farmiga plays his wife Lee Hart, and she is not in this as much as you would think, but when she does show up, she is really good in her performance. Whilst I did want more from her scenes with Jackman, she made up for it when we see her interacting with their daughter. I just wish we had more of her. And that's the same with J.K. Simmons, great actor, and once again he does great with what he is given. And when playing a character in control of others, he well and truly fits the role of someone that will give it to you straight. And again, he isn't in this as much as I would like. Finally, there is a small character that is played beautifully by Jenna Cannell. Her role is effectively to be that kind ear for Donna Rice, and while her dialogue is limited, her emoting brought a lot of sympathy for Donna's situation, and while she played a small part in the whole thing, she was by and large the character that felt the most human in this sea of public faces. Overall, The Frontrunner was a very interesting watch that could have been great had it not been afraid of pushing some boundaries and picking sides, because the end result is just a lot of noise to the point where I had a hard time recalling much of the bulk of the film. It is a perfectly fine serviceable film, but the lack of character depth just made it feel like a passing of time film, when in reality this should have been a harsh education on tabloid media and where the lines between duty to the public and commercialist greed really get blurred. As a result, this will not be a widely remembered film, but in my books it's an okay cup of tea. So if you enjoyed this review, leave a like, and what did you think of The Frontrunner? Let's discuss down in the comments below, and feel free to subscribe for more content coming all the time. This is That Spikehead Podcast, signing off.